Hey, welcome to another video of Bowling with Coach Charlie. So today we'll be looking at a video that features Team Singapore. So we'll be looking at the IBF World Championship Men's Teams Finals. So the title is in Korean, so I had to Google Translate it. So Google translated, it says silver medal yesterday for the South Korean team, obviously, because the uploader is a South Korean uploader. So obviously they're backing their own team, right? So they silver medal yesterday for the South Korean men's, and they're hoping for a gold medal today, or maybe they already got the gold medal. I'm not too sure. So this is the first time I'm watching this match, and we'll be reviewing the South Korean men team versus the Singapore men team. Okay, let's do full screen, and let's play it.
네, 드디어
Okay.
남자팀 결승전 대한민국과
So first shot from the Singapore men's team, this is either the warm-ups or the actual match. I'm not 100% sure.
프로가 투구했는데요.
Okay, this looks like the warm-up. This looks like Charihan. So Charihan has been, I believe, with the national team for quite a long time, since he was a young kid. If I'm not wrong, I think this is Charihan. So correct me if I'm wrong. So extremely good bowler. Missing a spare there, not nice, but
오픈을 해버리네요.
I believe this is warm-up.
오픈 미스. 대한민국에게는 좋은 기회를 줬고요.
Okay, can you hear the commentary? And I believe this is Ji Gum, if I'm not wrong, the left-handed South Korean bowler, male bowler. And Ji Gum is quite a famous bowler, so to say. He recently achieved fame by winning I believe the youth division of like the international, I think, youth bowling competitions back in 2019 or 2018. Yeah, so he won the men masters or something, or the singles. So he was the champion back there. Oh, this is the actual match. So Charihan actually missed that spare. Not good. Okay, not good for the Singapore team so far. So we have a difficult split to convert as well. Okay, I'm not too sure on the Singapore male team lineup because I'm not too familiar with them. Seems to be a really rough start. It's going to be hard for the team to come back. I'm also not sure if this is a quartet competition or a trios competition. And yeah, that's a loose count as well. So you can see most of our Singapore team members, right? They are not that super experienced in international competitions, as in they haven't won a lot of titles per se. So not that saying that they're bad, but it also means that they are pretty young and pretty inexperienced. So physical game wise, I don't think there's much weaknesses in their physical game. I'm not too sure. I haven't had a chance to see. But at the same time, with this kind of TV finals with the camera angle, it's also really hard to see most of it. So the pressure of a finals, the mental pressure, is definitely going to weigh on our young Singaporean guys more. Whereas for the South Korean men, like Jigum himself is quite an experienced bowler. He has won one championship himself. So already experienced that, and you can see that some of the back line of South Korean team, they are like much older gentlemen. They are obviously experienced bowlers, probably have a more international experience as well. And they were also on the TV finals yesterday, as in the day before this telecast. Probably, if I'm not wrong, is versus Team USA, which I think Team USA won based on what I know a little bit, but I haven't watched that match as well. So yeah, definitely the pressure, you can see the pressure on the Singapore boys' faces, Singapore men's team's faces. Hey, so this is another left-hander. So there are two left-handers in the South Korean men's team. That's kind of interesting. So obviously this lefty has more side roll, I guess. He's also using urethane. I know Jigum, the first bowler from South Korea. I was hoping for a strike there, but he got pin 7. Yeah. Jigum is mostly uses urethane because I saw his match versus Rafiq Ismail, and I believe when he won the singles championship 2 years ago, World Youth Singles Championship 2 years ago, he was also using urethane. Okay, good
네.
spare there. So pretty difficult for me to analyze the lines that they're playing because of the camera angle, but this is what we get, and let's see if we can analyze anything from it. Something I want to watch, I want to look at the South Korean guy's balance as well. He's can't really see here. Can I see it here? Yeah, there's a slow motion. Pretty unique form. Okay, so for the comment on his form, obviously balance arm is good. Knee bend is decent, right? Good knee bend. Trailing leg is not ideal though. If you can see the trailing leg here, not ideal. Usually, if we were to talk about the fundamentals, right? It's obviously better if you have a trailing leg back around here. So gives you better balance because you spread the weight of your body. So you spread the weight of your body over on this side, and so that you can balance the upswing from the swing of your bowling ball here. So yeah, pretty interesting form. I mean, he's probably bowled this way for a long time. If it works for him, I mean, it's fine. So when the athletes, especially bowlers, when they reach a very high level, such as these bowlers with their bowling for international competitions, usually coaches, if there's no serious deficiencies in their physical game, we will not try to fix it. We'll high level coaches will probably work on things like probably like targeting strategy, mental game, and so on and so forth. Or even if they will work on their physical game, they will work on more subtle things. They will try to avoid big changes in the physical game of these athletes, because if you do very big major change, it might really affect their form. And when they're already at the top of their game, the top among the world, if you affect their form or affect their physical game too much, we might be hindering the athletes more than helping them. So yeah, but just commenting that the trailing leg there probably not ideal, but yeah. So I'm just showing that what is the ideal form for a trailing leg. From
299점
Team
턱까지 왼쪽
Singapore, another
보이는데요.
split. Okay, that's
싱가포르 왜
can
이럴까요?
see that they're either missing their shots or they're very badly lined up. So in terms of team competition per se, okay, let's look at the physical game of our Team Singapore bowler. Pretty good, right? Fundamentals, balance arm really straight, trailing leg stretched out across from the other side of the body. So has a lowered bowling shoulder, right? So lower bowling shoulder is lower than the non-bowling shoulder, and very good knee bend as well. Pretty good knee bend. So fundamentals wise, he looks pretty solid. So just talking about team event in general, right? While I pause this game, generally for team event, for example, there's a little bit of strategy involved with team events. Usually, if you're only having a Baker game where you have just one game match as a showdown, right? Your lead bowler, for example, I don't see Jigum. I believe Jigum is here, right? So Jigum is the South Korean bowler. The lead bowler is pretty important. Lead bowler has to sort of like read the line per se, especially if you have not bowled any practice throws on the lane. So judging by the ball reaction of the lead bowler, whether the lead bowler's ball goes solid into the pocket and whether he hits his target or he misses his target, the lead bowler will give a bit of information to the other bowlers in the team. So the information is pretty important per se, because so for a Baker's match, let's say if assuming this is a quartet event, right? I believe one bowler only has like 2 frames on that. In terms of 10 frames, one bowler only bowls 2 frames. So within that 2 frames, you have to make your shots count. It's either you get a strike, or if once you get a split, then you only have the next shot to try and adjust. So you really have very minimal, small chance to adjust. So you have to get the information, the lane change, whether the oil change, or all this information, right? You have to read it off your teammates' shots. So looking at the second bowler, right? So I believe this is our second bowler from Team Singapore. So when the second bowler's ball overhooked, he went high into the pocket and he got split. Ideally, he should be relaying information back to his team. Like, he should be telling his coaches and his teammates that whether he actually hit his target. So assuming that he hit his target, and the ball overhooked, that means the lane is either so-called drier or the oil is shorter than what they originally thought. So that means the other bowlers, the third and fourth bowler that's bowling behind him, should either make a change if they're bowling along the same line or along the same area, same break point. They should adjust based on the information that they get from the second bowler. Because I believe first bowler, I think Rehan, I'm not too sure. Let's take a look at how Rehan did. I believe Rehan hit the pocket, right? It was beginning here. Okay, let me clear the arrow from the screen. So, already, yeah.
드디어
Yeah, so Rehan hit the pocket. So, ringing 10. Ringing 10, as I analyzed in the previous video, there are a few reasons for ringing 10. One could be that your entry angle is not good enough into the pocket. That's one. Other reasons could be that either you threw your ball a little bit too fast and the ball hasn't entered into a complete roll before entering the pocket. Hence, because if your ball is still how should I explain it? Like the positive axis point of your ball roll hasn't fully flattened out into a full rotation. There's a chance that the spinning rotation of the ball causes a lot of ringing pins. That means the pins will fly around pin 10s and pin 7s more than necessary. So you won't get that very solid strike reaction that you're looking for. So multiple reasons, but as long as Rehan hit the pocket, we're assuming that the oil conditions are good. So that is where the second bowler, when the second bowler went high, so when we look at it, I believe a second bowler from Team Singapore, I believe it was here, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, I do not know his name. So when the second bowler from Team Singapore is shot, so looks pretty good. When he went high, right? So he should be relaying information back to his teammates, like especially the third bowler as well as the fourth bowler, as well as the coach as well. Because he should be relaying information whereby if he hit his target and it went high, that means there's something, some oil changes going off the lane. But if he missed his target, let's say he missed to the left and then he went high, so then they can't get a route, right? So this is why in the team event, also pretty important that everybody hits their shots, because by hitting your shots, you can give accurate information to your team and your team can adjust off it. If you miss your shots, then you can't really give accurate information, because I can just go back and tell the teammate that I don't know what's happening in the lane because I missed my shot. I missed to the left. That's why my shot went high and that's why I got a split. Okay, so that's for the strategy part. So looking at Team Singapore's third shot, right? So he went high. So our third bowler went high again, getting the exact same split as the second bowler. So now as he concentrates on getting this split conversion, couldn't get it. So now typically the third bowler should be relaying information back to the Singapore team. They should be saying that, okay, I hit my target, but my ball still went high. So the oil has, so our track area has become shorter than we originally thought. So the fourth bowler and as well as the first bowler again, if this is a quartet event, should make a change depending on that. Okay, that's interesting because South Korean team has 3 lefties on their team. So could this be a full lefty team? It's a lefty again. So if it is a full lefty team, it makes a lot of sense because like what I mentioned, if you want to read information from your teammates, right, you have to bowl in this. I mean, you have to bowl in the same area, obviously. So you remember the first bowler, Jigum, was a lefty. Second bowler, the guy with the blue ball, wearing the specs, was a lefty as well. So they could read off each other's lines and the bowlers can give information to the third bowler, which if in turn, again, is another lefty. So they're bowling along the same track area. So as in their balls are traveling along the same area on the lane. So yeah, they can give information off each other. So pretty interesting. It might be a full lefty South Korean team. Also using urethane ball, if I'm not wrong, looking by the surface of that ball. So we have at least 2 bowlers using full urethane on the South Korean men's team. And because urethane, compared with reactive, gives a little bit of different ball, like it shifts the oil differently on the lane. So it's pretty important as well. But mostly lefties, competitive men bowlers, most of them you will see that they prefer urethane because if I have a shot of the lane here, right? Okay, so this is why. So I've shot the lane. Most of them prefer urethane because as a lefties, most lefties would prefer having a straighter line to the pocket. Mainly because the majority of bowlers on the lane are right-handed. So right-handed bowlers, they will strip the oil away like this because right-handers typically play across the lane. As the lanes get drier and the oil gets shorter and shorter, the lanes get drier, or the front part of the lanes get drier, so to say. Right. So as they play across the lane, they will have their balls this way. So they will cross like the fourth arrow. Definitely they will start playing on the second arrow, and then they will play like the third arrow, and then third and a half and fourth arrow. So when you look at the lane, you will see that the oil has been stripped away from the right hand side of the lane. So as a left-handed bowler, typically you do not want to cross all these blue lines, right? You want the lane to have minimal changes so you can have the most consistent ball reaction. So left-handed bowlers have come up with ways to try and play as straight as possible as close as possible to the left getter, so as to avoid the oil transition from the right-handed bowlers. So hence this is where pure urethane balls really help, because pure urethane balls typically have a less aggressive back end reaction, so they can play straighter lines. Like their ball will, maybe I can do red as well. So they have play straighter lines, just like this red line that I drew here to the pocket, and they won't their ball won't travel over the blue lines of the right-handed bowlers, or the oil tracks of the right-handed bowlers, so to say.
고. 네.
Okay, pretty interesting way to spare the corner pins by hooking a ball at it. Pretty interesting. Also pretty risky as well. Most of the time we would recommend for corner splits, right, to use a plastic ball. That's because you don't know, if you're not particularly sure about the oil condition in the middle part of the lane, just having that plastic ball and throwing diagonally across the lane for all your spares is just a safer way to go. Okay, so this is the fourth bowler. So this is a quartet event. Fourth bowler from Team Singapore. Did he make adjustment? Okay, so obviously he made an adjustment here. So probably this is a tactical adjustment from either the coaches or the players, because our second and third bowlers have both went high. That means their ball has overhooked, went high into the pocket, right? So two of them already went high into the pocket. So this is where the coach is probably telling the fourth bowler, or the fourth bowler is probably thinking that I have to adjust from my initial line that I did in practice. So he adjusted to them. So he probably went a little bit more to the left and sent his ball out a little bit more to the right. But in this case, unfortunately, he made an over adjustment and he totally missed the hit pin. So totally missing the hit pin, leaving another so-called a difficult spare to make. It's not considered split. Maybe you can take a look at his physical game here. Okay, so you can see that from the way his leg kicks up, he's quite likely a power bowler per se, because the way that his trailing leg kicks up is very similar to what two-handers do, even though he's a one-handed bowler. Two-handers do this because they have a very big motion on the right-hand side of the body. So when they swing down and swing up with their arm, two-handers use both hands, obviously. So there's a bigger weight on the right-hand side of their body. Hence, their trailing leg normally, naturally, usually kicks up in order to try and counterbalance that big weight transfer on the right-hand side of their body, for if you're right-handed two-hander, for example. So in this way, because he's probably doing a very aggressive flick and follow through with his right hand as a one-handed bowler. If let's reverse a bit, take a look. I think they have a slow motion video here. Yeah, so you can see that he has this very aggressive flick of his shoulders to try and generate power. So like, yes, really aggressive flick. So he is really a power bowler. So with this aggressive flick, his right leg naturally kicks up to try and counterbalance all that heavy motion that he's doing here. Okay, so the trailing arm, balance arm, very straight as well. Generally, even though his trailing leg is not on the ground, like I explained earlier, is due to the style, right? The style that he chooses to bowl tries to generate more power by having a very aggressive flick with his shoulders and his arm. Okay, so I mentioned missing the pocket here, so adjustment. So obviously very dejected because they are trailing further and further behind the match. And since this is the finals, It is, and because our team, our men's team, doesn't typically have a lot of success internationally, so they are very anxious to get their gold medal as well. So probably feeling very dejected. Unfortunately, difficult spare to make. Can't really criticize him. At least he got 3 count. But this looks really bad for Singapore. For Team Singapore, I don't think we can come back in this match with this big a deficit, because this is 4 open frames in the first 4 frames compared with 3 close frames of our South Korean team. So unless the South Korean team like opens another 4 frames consecutively, there's probably no way that Team Singapore is going to claw back.
네,
Pretty unfortunate, but let's watch this match all the way. Okay, so our older South Korean bowler here, he's the only right-hander in the men's quartet team. Interesting. So at least they have 1 right-hander. Look at his form. So pretty interesting as well. He also kicks up his trailing leg here. So kicks up his trailing leg, balance arm really straight. Knee bend isn't that fantastic, but because he is slightly older, as you can see based on his appearance. So for older individuals, we can understand that because their kneecaps and their cartilage up, their knee is probably not as strong as they were compared to the younger bowlers. So typically they try and reduce their knee bend to try and reduce the strain on their knees. It's a very natural process. And as a coach, usually I try and keep that in mind based on the age of the bowler. So not as much knee bend, but because he's an older bowler, so this is probably unavoidable. It's probably the natural way that his game started transition. But the way that his trailing leg kicks up usually goes to show that he's also trying to do a lot of heavy follow through with his arm. Let's try and reverse a little bit. Take a look.
네,
Do we have a slow motion? Yeah, this is a slow motion
박예현
shot.
선수.
Very interesting. Yeah, he's not as aggressive as our 4th bowler from Team Singapore, but he also has this very exaggerated follow through. So he probably kicks up his leg to try and
네,
counterbalance that.
strike.
But he might also be kicking out his leg because of his lack of knee bend. But his knee bend is decent. Obviously, like I mentioned, not as low as younger bowlers. So the way he kicks this up, yeah, probably trying, because his knee bend is not as, his body is not as low. So his body might be naturally kicking this up to try and counterbalance. Generally still okay, not ideal, but it is what it is. So like I mentioned, for top level bowlers, we will not try and change too much of their physical game if it's not really contributing to improving their game.
Yes.
Okay, and they get a strike there, so that's basically curtains from Team Singapore. And so Rehan, which is our first bowler, comes back to bowl the 5th frame. So unfortunate. Hope they can at least claw back some score, get back some pride. Okay, pretty good shot. I believe he made an adjustment. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe he made an adjustment in his line. I think he's playing deeper into the lane. If I remember correctly, I think his first shot was closer to the right gutter, but now he might be playing a little bit deeper into the. He might be playing a deeper line on the inside of the lane, because the second and third bowlers have their shots have overhooked. So might be a change there, but I'm not 100% sure because I couldn't see the first shot due to the bad camera angle. I couldn't see the line of the first shot due to the bad camera angle. Yeah, pretty glad that he gets a strike there, pretty happy, because that's the first close frame that we have for Team Singapore. But yeah, South Korea probably gonna win the gold medal for this, unfortunately. Unfortunately for us, Team Singapore.
도망가야지요.
So Jigun here having a very smooth style. Can I really take a look at his game? No, his game is, yeah. So can't really catch him there. So using a retain ball, playing close to the right gutter. Yep. So can see a little bit about his form here. Yep, good balance arm as well. So one thing you notice with all our top bowlers here is that they all have very good balance arm. Balance arm position. Their balance arm is perfectly parallel to the floor. Parallel, that means if the floor is this, it's perfectly straight parallel to the floor, right? So perfectly parallel to the floor, great balance. None of them seems to be falling off their shots. They all have a good knee bend. All of their bowling shoulders are lower than their non-bowling shoulder. So this is another aspect of good physical game. And they offer follow through wise, obviously it differs between bowler to bowler. Like Jigun here, if you look at his follow through, isn't that exaggerated because I mean how much we can follow through also depends on the flexibility of our shoulder joint here. So if you have a stiffer shoulder joint, generally your follow through is not as high as someone else who has a more flexible shoulder joint. Generally, depends on your backswing, depends on your backswing as well. Typically, bowlers with higher backswing, because they generate more velocity as their ball comes down, they will typically have a higher follow through as well, and their ball can go a little bit faster. So in this case, I think he has a lower backswing, if I'm not wrong. If we take a look back, yeah, his backswing isn't particularly high. It's more in line with what we teach our modern game. So the peak of his backswing, if we can take a look from this dot here. Yeah. So the peak of his backswing, not particularly high, is just a little bit above his head. And he has this interesting motion where his arm twists out. So like he has this interesting motion where on the top of his backswing, right, his hand, rather than staying behind the ball, actually twists away. Like it's kind of like a corkscrew effect. Like it cocks away from the shot, so it twists the arm in this circular motion. Difficult for me to illustrate. Like he twists his arm like in this circular motion. So he twists his arm out, like, and I mean maybe it's due to habit. Then when he comes down on his shot, he straightens it back again to create rotation on the ball. Typically, we don't really recommend this. We don't really recommend this for when we are teaching young bowlers or new bowlers especially, because this adds to complexity in your backswing. So when your backswing becomes more complex, it is harder to be more accurate and consistent. Also, when you do this, like what Jigun is doing, like when you cock your arm like this, you are also tensing up some of the muscles in your arm as well. So some of the arm muscles, they get tensed up because obviously when you screw your arm, right, when you twist your arm, you're using some of the muscles as well. So you're also contributing to a more tense arm swing and backswing, which is generally not good. We want our arm swing to have as little tension as possible, to be as free as possible, so that we can be as consistent and as accurate as possible.
그렇죠.
Pretty strong release as well. So you can see that on his release, he twists his arm and his shoulder. So he straightens his arm and his shoulder, like everything straightens this way, because he cocked it the other direction before. His shoulder also straightens and turns as well. So a lot of rotation on the shoulder as well as the arm in order to create the revolution that he wants. But typically, like I mentioned, this style of cocking the arm back on the backswing, typically not recommended because it's not as accurate. Even though maybe it might give you a little bit more ref rate, but it adds to inconsistency. And it becomes more difficult when you're throwing a spare ball as well, because if you're very used to this twisting arm motion, even when you throw a spare ball, you will twist your arm and your spare ball might be hooking more than what you intended. So a spare shot might not be as straight or as accurate. Yeah. So some adjustments from Team Singapore. Unfortunately, they found the pocket, but they still couldn't get the reaction that they want. But at least they have adjusted a little bit deeper into the lane, I think, and they found the pocket. But it's too late now because of the first 4 open frames from Team Singapore. No way we can come back in this match. So we don't see the score screen here, so we don't know how much we are down by. Is this a single match or double match? Looking at the length of the duration of the game, I suspect that it's a double match format. Really unfortunate spare as well. So, okay, the way that he spared that is okay, it's decent. Because if you look at how he spared that, so he's aiming for the ball to roll into the first pin here. I believe this is pin 2, and have pin 2 deflect into pin 4. Pin 2 deflect into pin 4, while the ball, the bowling ball itself, where I use a blue, the bowling ball itself, once it hits pin 2, will roll straight and take away the back pin, which is pin 8, right? So unfortunately, what happened here is that probably the ball is either thrown too fast or hasn't entered into a full rotation. Like I mentioned before. So when your ball hasn't entered into a full rotation, right, what can happen is that you can slice the pins. So your pins can go really sideways. So I think in this case, it sliced the pin and it hit the pin too lightly as well. So if we go back a little bit, so we take a look at, let's try and get the moment that the ball hits pin 2. Yeah, it's around here, right? So you can see that, okay, this really isn't an issue of the ball rotation. So when we say the ball has entered into a full roll, typically if you look at the way the ball rotates, right? Like the ball rotates, now the ball is rotating like this way, right? You can see the rotation lines here, even though we're freeze frame. And the positive axis point of the rotation is around here. So the ball is more or less almost entered into full rotation. Usually when we say the ball, when I mention that the ball entered full rotation, usually I'm referring to the fact that the positive axis point of the ball is totally level, like totally parallel to the ground, and the ball is rotating in this way. The ball rotate. Let me use an arrow. So the ball rotates from back to forward this way. So as this rotation, that is what we call. That's why I mentioned as a full rotation. So typically, for strike shots, right, if your ball enters into a full rotation right before it hits the pocket, that's where you get the best pin action and you get your highest chance of getting a strike. So in this case, it's not really an issue with the rotation, but it's more an issue with the fact that he hit the pin 2 too lightly. So when he hit the pin 2, he has too little contact with pin 2 here. It contacts pin 2. It contacts pin 2 at the edge here. So in this way, it caused the pin 2 to slice away and not touch pin 4. So hence leaving this open frame.
네. 또 오픈을 하네요.
So this is the danger of throwing
앞선 주자가
strike balls at spare shots per se, because you really can't read what is in the middle of the lane because you haven't bowled that line before. So in this case, he made a little bit too little compensation, like he sent the ball a little bit either too fast or the line was too much to the right, so couldn't get that spare.
무방할 것 같습니다.
So this is originally the second bowler from South Korea, using an ebonite blue ball. I don't know whether that's urethane. It looks a little bit like hybrid or urethane, not too sure. Gets a pin 7 again. The first shot he left a pin 7 as well. So if we were to analyze his ball motion, can I take a look at his ball right before it enters the pocket? Let's see if you can see. Based on the color, really difficult to see because this is the one that is in the light has already contacted pin 1. Yeah, pretty difficult for me to see the rotation, but I think his ball roll has entered full rotation if I'm not wrong. Because from this camera angle, it looks like his positive axis point. His positive axis point is around here, and the ball looks like is entered into a full rotation. So rotation-wise, I think it's perfect. But still, when you hit the pocket, it deflected. So it didn't drive through, right? You can see that his ball, once it hit the pocket, it deflected to the left. So it didn't fully drive through into the center of pin 8 and 9. So the perfect strike will be where your ball drives through straight into pin 8 and 9. And then that leaves a ringing 7 again.
7번 핀.
So this might be a 2-game match. Okay, and that is, I forgot his name, right? The bowler from Team USA. So probably a guest commentator there. They probably, I think they beat Team South Korea. Yeah, he's showing his gold medal. So I think they beat Team South Korea yesterday for the men's trios. So they invited him as a guest speaker. I really couldn't remember his name at this point.
지금
by this
선수를
moment.
비춰줘야 할 상황에
Spares that.
네, 참 중계하는
Yeah. So you hear a little bit of the English commentary there.
결승전에 집중하시게.
Okay, that's the shot from Team Singapore. We get the pocket, but this time we leave a ringing 7. So a bit of a flats. Ring 7, flat 7 is around there.
싱가포르 선수들은 좀처럼 스트라이크가 잘 나오지 않습니다.
Yeah, so the TV crew is just focusing on the guest commentator because this match is gone and done. So like I mentioned, Team Singapore is not coming back in this match. So that is considered a 0 because that spare shot, it hit the gutter first, so it dropped in the gutter and then it rebounded back to hit the pin 10. So for new bowlers, for non-competitive bowlers, if you're watching this, in this case, right, for official tournaments such as this, obviously International Bowling Federation is a very official tournament. We will consider this a 0 as well. Even for your casual league matches, it is fair. It is most fair to consider this a 0, especially if your opponent is watching. Because to be fair to your opponent, once it drops in the gutter, it is considered a 0. So drops in the gutter and bounces back up to hit, should be considered a 0 shot. So there's a no score for that. It's not a spare.
두 번째 게임에서도 어떤 결과가 나올지 알 수가 없지만
You can see that Team Singapore man, our sparring game is not really that
두
good.
번째 게임도
Like I mentioned, many of them are pretty young and inexperienced, so it could be they could be very nervous, but the mental aspect is something that we really not easy to teach because you have to experience it, you have to gain experience. So most of it could be either they lack practice on their spare game, that could be the obvious reason, or maybe they're just really nervous.
고재혁 선수 투구.
Oh, so in this case, okay, now South Korea gets a split, but probably doesn't affect the outcome of this match. Even with that open frame, they will still win it quite comfortably.
우리 팀도 스프릿이
Okay, so right now, Team Singapore has
커버하지
like
못했습니다.
5 open frames, if I'm not wrong. 5 open frames among 10 frames. So it's going to be a pretty low score for Team Singapore. And Team South Korea just having high morale and just having fun, right? Because
짜증이 나려고
yeah, they're having such a big lead.
인터뷰는 간단히
I believe there should be a game too.
결승 경기에 집중을 해야
So-
될 텐데 저 화면을 계속 비춰주는 이 이유가 뭡니까?
Hey, it's still going high. So this shot going high. No, I believe for our fourth bowler from Team Singapore, I believe his previous shot was a pocket hit. So this shot going high is might be due to nerves.
Environment like this is getting comfortable and feeling confident in the shots that you're making. So I got to give the upper hand to Korea in this, especially with the track record that they have as well.
Because from my angle, I can't really see whether they hit the target or not. Pretty unfortunate. Okay, at least they made the spare. Yeah. So okay, guys, this is a good thing. Celebrate your spares. So all of them know that the match is lost, right? But at least when you get a little success, just celebrate and lift up your spirits. So they're doing the right thing. They're doing the right thing here. So he isn't like super dejected, like, oh man, it's a spare, doesn't matter. It's super dejected. He's like, yes, finally I made a spare, close the frame. Right. So in the end, bowling is just a game, right? And to be in your best frame of mind when competing in a game, per se, you gotta be having fun. So if you're freaking very dejected, like because you know that the game is lost and everything, you gotta just think of it, try and change your frame of mind, think of it, okay, just be lighthearted, like, okay, I'll just take this as a challenge. Can I finally make my first pair on TV, right? Because this is a televised match. Yes, I made my first pair on TV, yeah. Just celebrate the small achievements, have fun, joke around, try and lighten your own mood, as far as, especially if it's a team event, try and lighten your teammates' mood, right? No, have to take the pressure off the team, so to say.
But like I said, unfortunately, with Singapore starting the first 4 frames open.
So I remember, I think it was a was it the famous Wichita State team? Yeah. I think I heard some bowlers comment about by the way, Wichita State is a famous college team in the States where they're famous for having won the most team championships or the most I don't know what they call those championships, but I believe it's the college championships. NCAA, I believe they won the most NCAA championships. And our Team Singapore's Jazreel Tan actually came from there as well. She completed her college education and she played for Wichita State as well. So Wichita State has, according to what I've heard from other bowlers online, is that they have a tremendous mental game as well. So the coaches teaches the bowlers to celebrate even if they are struggling. Like for example, they throw a 7-10, they throw a strike shot and they get a 7-10 split, right? The team will the bowler, rather than looking dejected, they will just laugh. They will just make a big joke, and then the whole team will actually laugh about it. So it really goes to show that when you know, they really understand that even when you're not performing well, you should be trying to have fun, enjoy the competition, have fun, and then just hope that your subsequent shots get better, right?
네,
So they're obviously taking it seriously as well, but
지어봅니다.
when it's all serious competition, you still have to remember to try your best to have
마지막
fun.
10프레임.
Hey, good shot. So Rehan seems to be, is it the anchor?
싱가포르의 앵커맨
Is it the 9th frame or the 10th frame? I'm not
라인을
super sure.
잡아갑니다.
Yeah. So the team is looking at how Rehan's ball react, right? Pretty important because you need to read information from how your teammates ball. Right? Also, okay, so he's the anchor bowler, so that's 10th frame. So the first try of the 10th frame is just trying to close it out. So I believe there should be a second. I'm not too sure. First time I'm watching this.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
So there we go then. We are just at the final sections of this first game.
Hey, so a little bit. So we can take a look at Rehan's stance when he's holding the ball. Okay. So puts fingers in first and then put the thumb in. So this is important for one-handed bowlers, right? To note that there's a good pre-shot routine. Usually, most of them would have a comfortable feel in their fingers first before they put in their thumb. Because in this way, it's generally easier this way to clear the thumb from your strike shot, from your strike ball. Then balance the ball. So balance the ball on your bowling shoulder side. So in this case, Rehan is a right-hander. So he's balancing his ball on the close to his right shoulder, and have your right shoulder, your bowling shoulder, lower than the non-bowling shoulder. So if you're a right-hander, your bowling shoulder should be lower than your left shoulder during the stance and when releasing the shot. And subsequently, you reverse it if you're a left-hander. If you're a left-hander, your left shoulder, your bowling shoulder should be lower than the other side. Okay, so pretty good stance here. And shot-wise, so if you look at Rehan's eyes, that's what I explained about the 2-point aiming system, right? So he's looking at somewhere further and then he's looking at somewhere closer. So by further, he's probably looking at the break point. That means where he wants his ball to start hooking. That's really what we call the break point. And the closer point is probably the arrows. So you want to connect these 2 points in your mind and then try and draw a straight line from the break point to your arrows in order to visualize that straight path that your ball should travel to get to the break point. So having a 2-point aiming system helps the bowler to be more consistent and also helps them to reduce drift as well. Because I realize a lot of young bowlers, new bowlers, right? Typically they drift because they only focus on one single point at the arrows. So while they're moving towards their arrow target, right? Sometimes they drift left or they drift right because they don't have another point in the break point to have that straight line for them to move along. So 2-point aiming system helps to reduce drift and also helps your shot to be more consistent. So we typically recommend at least a 2-point aiming system compared to the 1-point aiming system.
We are just at the final sections of this first game. In the
어허.
Oh, he may be trying a new line there. That's a pretty bad miss. Yeah, he's probably trying a different line because that's the same ball, right? Or either that or he missed his shot by a lot.
에 맞추질 못했습니다.
Feel confident in making an adjustment here so they can get the ball to strike a little bit more consistently.
It's either trying a new line or he maybe had a very bad miss
점수가
on that
매우
strike shot.
저조합니다.
You got to put it in the back of your head. You got to wash it away, get rid of it, and
So
focus on
can't tell if he missed or not because of the camera angle.
커버해도 130.
Throwing a strike shot again, so trying to get a read off the lane again. Oh, no, because not a strike shot. So that looks like a different ball. Yeah. But that is not a strike shot. That's obviously a spare shot going for that spare. Okay. And Team Singapore back there discussing strategy, probably for the following game. So
네,
Team
지금
South Korea here
선수
just closing it out.
다음 게임을 위해서도 좋은 컨디션을
So
유지하고
Jigum
있고요.
happens to be the first bowler and their anchor bowler as well. And he's the currently, I think, the most famous and most successful bowler among this team so far. I don't know his result for the single tournament, but I believe I watched one of the matches he beat Rafiq Ismail, I think in the quarter final or semi final among the singles in this particular IBF tournament. So I think he went pretty far in the singles as well, but I don't know whether he was the champion, not too sure. Yeah, using a hammer ball, looks like a black hammer urethane. That's my guess.
조근 선수 다시 입을 지그시 깨물고 네, 그렇죠.
Hey, I'm gonna grab a bit of water, pause for a while. Hey, we're back. So let's continue the match.
간다. 두 핀이 동시에
Oh, that's still a strike. Yeah. Pretty good ping action there. Okay, so that's two strikes. That's probably the official there, talking to them at the back. So I believe there might be a lane change, because having a lane change would be fair if it's a if it's the first to two wins. I think either that or it could be a total pinfall out of two games. I'm not super sure on the format here. So also commenting on the venue, this is an outdoors venue. So it's very unique finals venue, because it's very rare that you have outdoor venues. And I believe only like the Middle Eastern countries like Qatar or Saudi Arabia, they have outdoor venues for outdoor bowling venues, because they construct a lane like in the middle of a shopping center or like in a sports facility, and and they have the showcase bowling match that typically the bowling finals typically on that outdoor lane. So one fact about outdoor lanes is that typically you expect outdoor lanes to hook more, because when you're outdoors you get more dust falling onto the lane, right? Then obviously when you have more dust on the lane, there's more friction. So typically when you bowl in outdoor lanes compared to an indoor lane, you will expect the ball to hook more, because you expect more friction, or you expect the oil transition to be faster, because as the matches go on, not only do you dry up more and more oil from the front part of the lane, more dust get deposited onto the lane as well. So more and more dust that's blowing from the wind outside, they get deposited on the lane, so the friction gets higher and higher as the matches go on. Okay, so that's the the lead bowlers have changed. Okay. So this first seems like this is first to two wins. That means first to two wins, and the first bowler for both South Korea and Team Singapore has changed, and Team Singapore actually got a strike there. South Korea, did he get a strike? I think he did. I wasn't paying attention. Let's look at the score sheet later. Okay, so Jigun there gets a strike again. Really strong bowler. Strong, very strong mentally. Like it looks like there's no emotion at all in his face when he throws his shot. Pretty smooth. Okay, second bowler from Team Singapore. So he didn't perform that well in the first game, but fortunately gets a strike here as well. So he seems to have calmed down, performing better. And okay, so yeah, unfortunately he falls off his shot here. Okay, so like I explained earlier, if you have a trailing leg that kicks up, typically bowlers do this because when they do a lot of a very violent follow through, right? So in this case, he kicks up, but he's falling off because he has too much body lean for this particular shot. So in this case, what I mean is that his right side of his body is leaning a bit too much on this side. So it leans a bit too much to the right, so hence he's falling off his shot to the right. So if you look at slow motion here, yeah, so he falls off the shot to the right.
through the negative ones and not get too high with the highs, too low with the lows, and just kind of work your way through. Those are the
Okay, pretty happy about the strike because he didn't do well on game 1. So it must be weighing on his mind, really trying to hard to redeem himself. Okay, so 2 strikes from both South Korea and Singapore. This is a closer match, more exciting match to comment on. Oh, okay, so the third bowler from South Korea, also probably using a urethane ball, went a little bit high. So how he went high is that his ball, right, hooked early. So rather than saying that the ball overhooked, most of the time when we look at ball reaction, we typically want to say that the ball hooked early instead, because that's what's happening in reality. Because ideally he wants his shot to go like around here, and then the ball will have a little bit of transition and then hook into the pocket, right? But if your ball hooks earlier, so compared to, let's say, if I draw a blue line, so let's say you're playing the same line here, but now your ball starts to transition and hooks a little bit early. So when it hooks earlier, that is where you get that overhook effect. That means your ball doesn't hit the pocket, instead it goes cross pocket. So it's not really that the ball overhooked. It's more accurate to say that your ball hooked early. So obviously why your ball hooked early, it could be either you miss your line, that means we missed the line that we want, and the ball is traveling through a different part of the lane that has a different distribution of oil, or it could be that the front part of the lane or the front or middle part of the lane is drying up. Most typically is the front part. That means the front part, meaning that if I were to box, right, that means the oil from the front part of the lane, it could either, we don't have a full lane here, right? The front or middle part of the lane. So the oil is drying up along the line, not really accurate. So maybe I will draw this way, right? Like the oil, either along the path, right? So the oil has been drying up. It's been taken off by bowling balls from your teammates or from ourselves, our own bowling ball. So as the oil is drying up, there's more friction on the lane and our ball is hooking early, which causes that overhook effect. The ball hooked early and it overhooked. So he's fortunate that he didn't leave a split because he went high on the 1-3 pocket there, on the cross pocket there, and he have a simple spare to make. He'll probably make this. So an outdoor lane, I explained earlier, outdoor lane typically hooks more compared to indoor lanes. So the competitors need to keep that in mind to make line changes or ball changes a bit faster when compared to an indoor bowling. But even for TV finals, right, when a lot of professional bowlers, they explain that even for TV finals that's held indoors, the oil changes are faster as well because there are TV lights. There's a lot of very bright lights that's shining on the lanes. So a lot of bowlers feel that this bright lights causes the oil to be a little bit more fluid, so the oil flows about more because oil is sensitive to temperature, right? So the higher the temperature, the more liquid or more flowy the oil. Pretty lucky strike there. It leaves a 10, but the messenger actually cleared it. So this is the benefit of power, right? So I mentioned this is our power bowler from Ting Singapore here. So benefit of power, yep. You love to see that as a power bowler every time. Having that, it's a ring 10. So if you look at how his ball, let's look at the ball rotation. Yeah. So I think the positive axis point of the ball is like this instead. So I don't think the ball has entered the complete full rotation yet. And because of the speed at which the ball was delivered as well, so it seems that there's a little bit too much speed and a little bit too much power when you enter into the pocket. And also the fact that because the ball might not have entered the full rotation yet, so the pin action tends to send the pins flying. So the pin 1 was sent flying to the left, and if we see right, when it leaves a ring 10, is that this pin, which is pin 3, goes and pushes pin, this is pin 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, pin 6 on the left hand side of pin 6. So by pushing on the left hand side of pin 6, with that amount of power and the speed that you push, it causes pin 6 to fly around, or maybe causes pin 6 to go into the right gutter instead of colliding into pin 10. So this is how we leave a ringing 10. Yep, correct. So you can see here, pin 6 goes right into the gutter. Pin 1 gets sent flying into the left wall here. And because it depends on the material of the walls as well. So, yeah, I mean, the benefit of the power and the ball speed, it hits, well, the reaction was so fast, it hits the wall, and it's, I don't believe it was pin 1 actually. The messenger might not have been pin 1. Let's take a look again. So, was it pin 1? Yeah, it is pin 1. So we see pin 1 flies here, right? So this is pin 1. Flies, then it hits the lane here. So pin 1 again hits the lane here, and then it's gonna go here and then collide onto pin 10 here. Yeah, so it is pin 1. Pin 1 is a messenger. Yeah, has to be happy about that because now Team Singapore has a lead. So I believe 3 strikes is to 2. So we expect the South Korean veteran here to make that easy spare. Oh, he already made that spare. Okay, so this is the other frame. I'll grab my drink. Hey, back. So this is 4th bowler from South Korea. Throws a strike as well. Pretty close match so far. So Team Singapore has been all strikes. And South Korea has 3 strikes and a spare on the 3rd frame. Yeah, he's happy too. Everybody's happy when everybody's striking. Okay, so Rehan is our 4th bowler this time. A lot of pressure. Yep, so Team Singapore up with 3 strikes. South Korea with also 3 strikes as well. So trying to strike to stay ahead. So it went a little bit too high, right? You can see that it went a bit too high. It hooked a little bit early, so went too high into the pocket. Fortunate that it didn't leave a split, so it leaves a single spare, a single pin spare, which is typically easy, but it depends on whether Rehan has the nerves to throw a single spare, because he has previously missed spares in game 1, right? And we can see that Team Singapore is not that strong in their spare game. It's either they're not strong in their spare game, or it could be the nerves. They could be really nervous that's affecting their spare. So nobody will know. Only the bowler themselves. Sometimes even the bowler themselves can't really tell whether it's the nerves or whether they just need practice. It's a Ebonite crush. What ball is that? Never seen that ball before. Is it an old ball? Doesn't look old as well. It looks like a new ball. Yeah, it might be a international OEM or South Korean only release. Alright, how is nerve through strike? Okay, now I think it's South Korea should have the lead at this moment. So 3 strikes and 9 spare for Team Singapore, and 2 strikes, 9 spare, and 2 strikes for Team South Korea. Yeah, this is what the audience wants to watch, right? Strike fest. Ooh. Oh, nice strike. Nice strike from our first bowler. So he's going to be our anchor bowler as well. Yeah, so Team Singapore back in contention. Yep, proud supporter there. Probably the parent of one of our bowlers, probably the probably our female team bowler. Team Singapore's female team bowler. So Jigun here,
그렇죠.
nerves of steel, right? He just has no expression at all. Just go about his business, ho hum, another strike. Amazing, amazing mental game. So this amazing mental game, not phased at all, and he just performs amazingly in both. How the he's using a clip. So he's using a clip and clipping on like his shirt to clip the
네.
phone onto his shirt.
쫓아올 것이냐? 그렇죠, 그렇죠,
음.
그렇죠.
So in this case, was it a little bit of a light pocket here? Let's take a look.
네. 쫓아올 것이냐?
Doesn't look like a light pocket hit. Does not look like a light pocket hit.
쫓아올 것이냐?
So I cannot really see the ball rotation. So yeah, it could be many reasons. Could be either that this ball just went a little bit too far. Like I mentioned, haven't entered into a full rotation when it went into the pocket. That means the positive axis point is still tilted when you roll into the pocket. Or it could be just thrown a little bit too fast as compared to what you would have liked. Because typically, when you're nervous, things can happen to our physical game, right? So you could maybe he threw the shot a little bit too fast. I'm not 100% sure. But instead, it leaves so that's not the reaction that he wanted, and it leaves a ringing 10. So ringing 10 would be because the pin 3. In this case, you can see that it hit the pin this way. So the ball pushes pin 3. Pin 3 goes this way, causes pin 6 to just sort of like almost teleport, like it moves like sideways, and doesn't touch pin 10.
그렇죠, 그렇죠.
And that pin will roll, so that pin that rolls along is not really pin 1, so it's not really the typical messenger. It doesn't contact with pin 10 and leaves that pin 10 stand.
이라는 경기가 묘합니다.
Yep.
남이 안 되기를
So let's see if our Team Singapore bowler can hold his nerve and make that spare.
네.
So like I mentioned, many of them have missed spares in game 1. So
그러면
let's see if they can forget about that and just focus on making their spares. Looks good. Yep. Well, not the ideal spare. I think he hit a little bit close to the gutter. Not the ideal spare. He was almost falling into the gutter, but at least he still made it. So how is nerve? Made his spare. Team Singapore is down now because we have now two non-strikes compared to just South Korea, which has only one non-strike. So South Korea has the lead.
So here we go again. So we're looking at the possibility now. They're already one up. A couple more strikes into the bag. Let's see what happens.
보세요.
So this bowler made an adjustment because earlier his shot was the only one that didn't strike from South Korea because his shot hooked early. So he probably made a line adjustment because it looks like the same ball, same rotating ball. So he probably went deeper to a deeper line and managed to get a strike. So South Korea with a not say commanding lead, but with a lead nonetheless. If our bowler here from Singapore doesn't strike, then South Korea will have a very commanding lead.
Supporting everybody. And the one thing I've noticed, and I always wish I knew what they were saying. But the Asian countries, Singapore, Korea, Malaysia.
Oh, that's almost a 7-10. So like I mentioned, 7-10s. I mentioned this in a previous video. 7-10 happens if okay. So almost 7-10. So 7-10 happens when your ball, right, when it hits the pocket, it deflects. So when it deflects, when it has like too much spinning energy per se, when it hasn't entered into a full rotation, or if it's thrown too fast in a way, when it enters into the pocket, your ball tends to deflect this way. So when it deflects this way, and you send the pins, pin 2 slaps out. So if we can just go back to, let's see if I can get the exact moment that it falls. Okay, yeah, this is not bad. This is quite a good one. So the ball, right, hits pin 5 and deflects to the right. So when pin 1 contacts pin 2, pin 1 contacts pin 2, and pin 1 should go straight into the left gutter because the ball is going so fast with that spinning rotation that it sends pin 1 flying away to the left hand side as compared to having better contact with pin 2. So now pin 2 gets, because you contact pin 2 on the front of pin, you contact pin 2 at the front part. So when you contact pin 2 at the front, it sends pin 2 flying straight inwards into the pin 8. It should contact pin 4 as well. So let's see if we can get a very quick. Wow, it's too fast. So it contacts pin 4 and also sends pin 4. Pin 4 goes. Pin 4 looks like, in this case, pin 4 looks like it went straight back. So it looks like it went straight back, and the pin 4 didn't hit pin 7. But in this case, we had a very lucky tap from, I think this is pin 1, that went out of the gutter and tapped pin 7 to fall. So instead of a 7-10, it only left weak 10.
네. 7텐이 될 뻔했는데 7번 핀이 넘어가졌습니다.
But when they bowl as teams, when they bowl doubles and trios in the team events, it's almost like they have a competition as to who.
So for all these ringing 10s and a possible 7-10, it could either be Team Singapore bowlers actually either change to a weaker cover stop ball, so the ball could be going further down the lane before entering a full row, or they could be throwing the ball faster, which I can't really tell from this camera angle. See if he makes a spare. Doesn't. Yep. So our spare game is the bane here. Either lack of nerves or just that our spare game is just not strong enough. So missing a spare is probably fatal to our team's chances here, Team Singapore's chances here, because South Korea is in a row with 4 strikes, and the open frame really drops us down the score. And South Korea should be closing this out. So if they continue striking, doesn't strike, but still easy spare to make, right? Single pin spare. What? Okay, this is a strike. Okay, this is a strike. Okay, this is a strike. So this is interesting for some of you new bowlers who are watching this. If the pin falls before this machine here, you notice that this pin setter machine here, if the pin falls before the pin setter machine touches the pin, it is still considered a strike because it is other pins that pushes it to fall down. If the pin falls because of this pin setter machine here, pushing down and touching the pin, if it's due to the fault of the pin setter machine, then it is not a strike and the pin will be reset and the bowler has to go for a spare. So in this case, because as we can see from the TV replay here, it is the pin setter machine has yet to touch the pin. So watch. Yep. So obviously the pin setter machine was still quite far away, right? It was like so far away. It has no way of touching the pin. It was the other pin that came from, it hit the side wall here and it rebounded, rolled into, I believe this is pin 8. If I'm not wrong, or is it pin 4? So this is a strike.
Nice.
Yeah, so seems like South Korea has won the gold medal match. But now,
어디 갔다가 핀이 돌아오나요?
I turned and looked at you for just a quick second, and all of a sudden the pin was gone.
Tom Clark said to me, keep looking at the pin.
아.
You can stare them.
yeah, I don't know which pin was it. Yeah, but it rolled.
돌다가
It's really slow in the slow motion. Yeah, the pin rolled over, as you can see, rolled over, and yeah, pushes it down before the pin setter machine touches it. So it is considered a strike. Yep, they have the gold medal now.
Have you ever seen that?
I haven't seen a pin rack that slow to allow pins to move around that much, and I don't know how. I don't think ever.
Wow.
That rack took
자.
a long time to come down to pick up the pin. and
99%
slide.
금메달입니다.
That doesn't happen all that much.
Well, don't forget, we were playing that back in what we call super slow-mo. So the rack...
Yeah, even the television crew know that the match is probably gone South Korea's way by now. So they're not even filming the shot from Team Singapore. So Rehan there probably threw a non-strike because he's picking out his spare ball.
우리 남자 선수들 참 대단합니다. 어제는
I thought a pin actually
Oh, split.
어제는
Yeah, rough split.
금메달.
What split was
금메달.
that? Was it an 8-10? That is
왜
weird.
버퍼링이 예.
Is it
그런데 또
8-10?
생각해 보면 예. 지근 선수는 금메달 제일 먼저 따고 어제 은메달 따고 또 이제 오늘
Yep, so South Korea just have to spare the remaining 9 and 10 frames to close this out. As long as you don't open any frames, I don't think Team Singapore has a chance to catch up. Because if we're looking at max score, Team Singapore's max score is we can have a strike on the 9th frame. So we can strike here and we can strike out here, right? So our maximum would be 60, I believe. So 60. So it'll be 60 plus 156. So we can have a maximum score of 216 if we strike out. But for Team South Korea, so Team South Korea now has so if we erase that, Team South Korea now already has, this is, if they strike again, they should have 30 here, so this would be 159 plus 30 would be 189. And then if they have another strike in the 10th frame, this will be another 30 on the 8th frame. So 189 plus 30 again should be 219, if I'm not wrong. I believe it's 219. So then they would have already beaten Team Singapore by then, because Team Singapore's max score is only 216.
뭐 금메달만 따야 다 뭐 삼관왕 그렇게 하지 않아도 대단한 거지요. 아이고.
Okay, pin 10, but as long as he spares this, they should be still way ahead.
네.
So definitely Team Singapore needs to strike out to create as much pressure as possible.
양수진 선수 등을 보여주네요.
Yeah, camera catching a nice shot of the South Korean female bowler Yang Sujin's back there and with a name.
수진 양, 미스 영.
Oh, they call it Sujin Yang. Oh, okay.
참 많은 것 같습니다.
Spares it, no problem. So you can see that the South Korean men's team definitely is more relaxed. Their spare game is more on point. They haven't missed a single easy spare at all for the two matches.
네.
So strike from Team Singapore, they have to strike home on both the 9 and 10 frames to just apply as much pressure as possible, but still pretty unlikely, because if you're looking at the score right now, right? So let's assume that South Korea gets a strike on the 10th frame. Once they get a strike on the 10th frame, the score here is 228, because you will get 20 on that spare. So once it's 228, that means their 9th frame score has already beaten Team Singapore's maximum score of 216. So they have the match in the bag. They just need good count on frame 10 and they will have won. South Korea will have won.
This game is mathematically over.
It's all done mathematically. We're looking at the world champions elect.
우리나라 선수들이 10번 핀 커버하지도 않고 거터거터 한다 하더라도
We have to finish these sections, but of course,
네,
Okay,
이번에
so he's the
박지영
first bowler and
선수
now becomes the anchor bowler from South Korea as well.
리드오프로
Pretty relaxed, just looking at the side there, maybe some noise there. But he still seems pretty focused when he took a shot and a strike, so they have the gold medal. Gold medal confirmed. So nothing that Team Singapore does will change their fate. So not too bad. Team Singapore men's teams here gets a silver medal at the silver medal for men's quartet at the International Bowling Federation tournament, which I believe it could be one of the highest finishes for our men's team. As I mean, in the recent, recent few years, recent 5 to 10 years, because of course Singapore's men's team has had quite a lot of success in the past. I think in 20 years ago and stuff like that, when it was the Remy Ong era.
아이고 스크린 날
Okay, so he has a strike, then he has an 8. Yeah, so they get the gold medal as well. Why is she on a wheelchair?
박은미 선수는 왜 휠체어에 앉아 있나요?
That's interesting. Is her feet suffering that badly that she has to be on a wheelchair? Maybe she got injured.
챔피언샷
Yeah, just the last shot.
저럴
Yeah,
때 보면 강희연 선수 영락없는
and to close out the
아재같죠.
match.
챔피언샷입니다.
Okay,
네, 대한민국 금메달.
so South Korea men's team considered got the gold medal in the men's
자,
team's
부럽습니다.
Quartet tournament.
팀 코리아 화이팅.
Quartet meaning four bowlers. Yeah, now Jigun shows a little bit of emotion, just celebrating with their teammates there. And I believe that's it. Well, that's it. Thank you very much for watching this so-called replay, this analysis with me. I didn't get to analyze much because I couldn't see the top-down view. So just going to show that sparing is important because Singapore's men's team spare game is definitely not as strong as South Korea's men's team. And that's about it because can't see a top-down view. Okay, thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time.